I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. The Republicans' wrap-up in Tampa will round up the week's events.
Catholics have, for the first time, being touted as really an important swing vote. And that's a credit to what the bishops have been doing and the cardinals have been doing in trying to get Catholics across the nation to be more active.
And go into the deep for a look ahead to Labor Day.
It is a day when we recognize that man's labor is something that has been given to us by God, not as a curse, but as a blessing.
Plus, Plant, Grow, Give. A program allows these residents to give back.
Today, our Day Have program picked the vegetables from their garden and delivered them to Carlos Legacy in Hempstead. Carlos Legacy is an agency who helps people who need a little bit of help just coming back into society a little bit.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Currents Week in Review. It was quite a week for Republicans. They held their convention in Tampa to nominate and make the case for Mitt Romney as the next president. And Thursday night, Romney made it official, accepting the GOP nomination. In a speech that lasted almost 45 minutes, Romney touched on a number of issues, including what many consider the big one, the economy and how he feels President Obama has mismanaged it. Romney, a Mormon, also talked about how he and his family found comfort in their church when they moved out of Michigan and how they have welcomed others who were new to town and new to the family's church. Well, for more on last night and the entire Republican National Convention, I spoke with the Catholic Citizens Committee Director of Special Projects, Brian Kasuba. The Catholic Citizens Committee is made up of Catholics from the Diocese of Brooklyn who advocate the teachings of the church in the public arena and encourage other Catholics to do so as well. Brian, thank you so much for joining us. We have a lot to cover today, and let's get beyond the pomp and circumstance,
Sure.
beyond Clint Eastwood talking to a chair and all the entertainment value. Let's really dig deep into the RNC. What is your overall final take on what you saw this week?
You know, I think they did a good job. I think coming into this week, they had a lot of things they had to try to cover. I mean, if you looked at the polls going into this week, where Romney was behind was on his appeal to women, on his likability, and things of that nature. And obviously, the economy has been such a hot button issue. To try to cover all that in a matter of 3 days, and I think he and the Republicans did well to try to address those overall issues, which are hot button of this race.
You did find that he connected with voters, and how about Catholics especially? Because this is being touted as one of the most important speeches of his political career as of now. Did you find he made good use of the time?
I mean, absolutely. You know, it was about a 40-minute speech, and you know, he did have a lot, again, to cover, but he did make a point to single out, you know, the importance of protection of life, the importance of protecting, you know, the freedom of religion. He made a point to even discuss his own, you know, religious background to make sure that, you know, it was palatable to everyone else.
I'm happy you brought that up. Do you find that the candidates have done due diligence to the issues that are affecting specifically Catholics today? And I don't really want to always make it a Catholic issue.
Sure.
I mean, religious freedom, the HHS mandate, obviously affects everyone in its own specific way. But for our purposes here, we want to talk about how it affects our faith. Do you think the candidates have addressed those issues adequately? And what would you like to hear more of?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I obviously think they could always do more, and I think that's been the problem with sort of the Catholic vote coming into this election, and being that, you know, Catholics have, for the first time, being touted as really an important swing vote. And that's a credit to what the bishops have been doing and the cardinals have been doing in trying to get Catholics across the nation to be more active. And for the first time, we're seeing at both conventions that the Catholic issue is going to take place, specifically with the fact that you know, Cardinal Dolan is gave the benediction last night and will be speaking next week as well at the DNC. That says a lot that both parties are trying to make sure that Catholics are not forgotten.
All right, I'm going to ask you to put your forecasting hat on, put you on a spot just a little bit, but I know you'll be able to handle it. The Democratic National Convention next week. We don't know what they're going to talk about. We don't know exactly what's going to be taking place. What would you like to hear, and what issues would you prefer that they address a little bit more?
Absolutely, I think it's important, especially it'll be interesting to see what Vice President Biden does, being that he himself is identified a Catholic, to try to discuss the religious freedom issue, to try to make Catholics understand that that presidency and that ticket, were they to stay in office, would defend Catholic issues and Catholic rights. It would be nice to see that, sort of as a counterpoint to what Paul Ryan was able to do, and even Mike Huckabee spoke about the other day, making sure that Mike Huckabee was one of the few people who actually mentioned the word Catholic in his speech, and saying that that the Republican Party are with the Catholics on the religious freedom issue, that we're all united together on that issue. It would be nice to see what the Democrats are able to do to respond to that, especially with the fact that Dolan will be speaking next week also.
Right. All right, Brian, let's bring this full circle in the time that we have left. This is very important because your committee has been extremely active in getting out the word, in giving out information, rallying people for the vote. What have you been doing, and what more can we do to become more involved, to make our voices heard, not just Catholics, everyone?
Absolutely. With the limited time we have left, the voter registration deadline, it doesn't take place until early October, so we're planning on doing more registration drives this coming month, throughout the end of September. We hope to have well over 100 churches by then. We're right now working with the Knights of Columbus throughout the diocese and throughout the state to do drives, within their councils. We implore any other groups that want to get involved to reach out to the Catholic Citizens Committee to try to do something before the end of the month. And then after that, with the month or so before Election Day, we really are going to turn our focus to making sure that all these people who we have on our mailing list now, who have showed that they want to be engaged, want to get more information, that we contact them, reminding them about the issues, reminding them where the candidates stand, reminding them what they should be thinking about when they go to the polls, and making sure they do go to the polls and in the end vote their faith.
All right, Brian, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it here. I love talking to you. You always come with such great information, which means you're going to have to come back.
Thanks, Liz.
Especially ahead of Election Day. But
I
thank
hope
you
to do
again
that.
for joining us.
Great.
And we will have more on the Republican National Convention straight ahead. My interview with Republican New York City Councilman Eric Ulrich is next. Welcome back to Currents Week in Review. I'm Liz Faublas. The Republican National Convention wrapped up on Thursday. For 3 full days, delegates, supporters, volunteers, family, friends, and those who tuned in heard an array of rousing speeches. The aim, according to political analysts, to energize the party, the attendees, and to convince voters that Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney and his vice presidential running mate Paul Ryan have what it takes to lead the country. And if you did not think faith played a role in this week's Republican National Convention, well, consider this. There were blessings and invocations by at least a half a dozen religious clerics and leaders. Participants heard from religious leaders representing the Jewish faith, Greek Orthodox Christians, and Sikhs. And Cardinal Timothy Dolan gave the final benediction at the Republican National Convention on Thursday night. In his prayer, Dolan asked God that we may, quote, know the truth of your creation, respecting the laws of nature and nature's God, and not seek to replace it with idols of our own making. Cardinal Dolan will also pray at the Democratic National Convention next week. Now, on Wednesday, I spoke to New York City Councilman Eric Ulrich of Queens. Eric chaired Romney's New York City campaign, and he is a graduate of Cathedral Prep Seminary and St. Francis College, and he joined me to offer a first-hand perspective of the RNC. Eric, from what I'm hearing, I get the sense that the delegates, the speakers, the Romney and Ryan family are energized not only about this convention, but about the upcoming election. And I don't believe I'm too far off the mark there. What is the tone of the convention right now from your first-hand vantage point?
Well, there is a lot of excitement building down here. As you know, Monday's agenda was canceled due to the tropical storm. And they moved everything to Tuesday. And last night, Chris Christie just delivered a blockbuster speech, knocked it right out of the ballpark. Ann Romney really drove it home, gave a fantastic speech. I mean, the delegates, the guests, the convention center was packed. Everybody was going wild. I think that this is exactly what the Romney team was hoping for, that they could pick up this momentum and bring it into the November election.
And I think you really hit the nail on the head, picking up the momentum after it was delayed. I want to ask you, Eric, did we learn anything new about Mitt Romney from his wife Ann and from Governor Chris Christie's speech? Because critics are arguing that there were no real substantive revelations about Mr. Romney, and that made for kind of a missed opportunity on the part of both Mrs. Romney and the New Jersey governor. Do you agree?
No, I disagree. I was in the room. I felt the passion and the sincerity. It really, it really came through, especially with Ann Romney's speech. I mean, talking about how they met and her struggles and how her husband was there for her when she had her bouts with MS, and obviously she's still dealing with that, and breast cancer, and raising their children, and how they moved into a basement apartment when they were young and they first got married. I mean, that resonates with people. I mean, these are real people, real families with real struggles like everyday Americans, and for the media to trivialize that in any way is really unfair, because I think that they have a wonderful story to tell, and she told it last night, and the world was watching, and they were listening, and I thought that it's provided a tremendous boost for the campaign.
Mm-hmm. And I tuned into the speech, and I have to tell you, I found that it was a rousing speech, and I found that it was very, very moving, and I don't think too many people can actually argue with that. Tonight, Paul Ryan speaking. What does Paul Ryan add to this GOP ticket, Eric, especially with regard to the Catholic faith?
Well, look, the Catholic vote is a key constituency within both parties. Paul Ryan, though, being so strong on the social issues and the moral issues that conservative Catholic voters really care very much about, is very important. And having a Catholic vice president, I think, shows the Republican Party's commitment to reaching out to Catholic voters, traditional Catholic voters and also non-traditional Catholic voters. We saw a great deal of, Hispanic outreach yesterday at the convention, and I think that's going to obviously energize the ticket as well. Paul Ryan, though, aside from energizing the Catholic base and talking about the issues that are important to Catholic voters, I believe he has a very genuine, Midwestern type of persona that appeals to a lot of people, a lot of middle-class and working-class Catholic families who are just trying to raise their families and follow the tenets of their faith, and they just want their leaders to reflect that and to believe in the things that they believe in. And I think Paul Ryan was an excellent choice.
And Eric, also in keeping with the Catholic demographic, we also know that Cardinal Dolan is scheduled to give the closing benediction on Thursday night. Can you give us a sense of the other types of Catholic presence at this convention?
Well, I mean, there are so many good people, religious leaders, not only from the Catholic faith, but there are several Orthodox, Jewish delegates. There are people from the evangelical churches from across the country that are here. There is such a cross-section of the American spectrum and the American people that is represented here at the Republican convention that I don't think the mainstream media is doing it any justice. Mm-hmm. If you've seen the people that are delegates and sitting in those seats, and the people that are sitting in the seats in the convention center, you will see that the Republican Party is the party of the big tent. It's the party of inclusion, and I think that shows a strong coalition of support for the Romney-Ryan ticket in November.
Eric, I want to address this in the time that we have left. As you know, Republicans approved a platform that includes banning abortion and same-sex marriage, reshaping Medicare into a voucher-like program, cutting taxes to energize the economy and creating jobs, things that are important to everyone, but of specific importance to the Catholic faith. What is your opinion on that? Is everybody in the RNC on the same page right now?
I think so. I think that the majority of the delegates and the people that are in charge of shaping the platform agree that America is only as strong as our families, and when our families are strong, our communities are strong, and when our communities are strong, our country is a strong place. So, the Republican Party's platform, we don't subscribe to the secular theology of the Democratic Party platform, where it's relative in terms of morals and anything goes, and don't offend anybody. I think that our ability to stand for something, to stand for principles, to stand for values, it speaks volumes about what the Republican Party is all about and our commitment to keeping Catholic voters within the fold. And we are very excited about this campaign, and Catholic voters should feel very excited. In 2004, the Catholic voters played a pivotal role in Ohio, for instance, in handing that election to George W. Bush. I think that this year, similarly, Catholic voters are going to play just a critical role in deciding whether or not Barack Obama gets elected, or re-elected president. But if Romney stands a chance at winning, he has to have the Catholic vote, and the Republican Party is committed to making sure that we reach those Catholic voters and we let them know where we stand on the issues and that we're going to be there for them.
All right, Eric, thank you so much. We know you're on the run. Thank you so much for making time with us today. It is always good talking to you, and we will definitely check back with you soon.
Thanks very much. God bless. Thank you.
God bless. And you'll want to stay with Currents next week as we cover the highlights of the Democratic National Convention, which kicks off Tuesday in Charlotte, North Carolina. Stay tuned. More Currents after the break. Coming up, we'll talk about Labor Day with Bishop DiMarzio as we head into the holiday weekend.
A job is something that is finite, but a vocation to work and to fulfill God's plan in your life is something much greater.
So, are you all ready for Labor Day? Because for many, I'm sure, plans include a nice day at the beach, a backyard barbecue, maybe a movie, and of course, we can't forget one of the highlights of the Labor Day weekend right here in Brooklyn, right along Eastern Parkway, the music, the costumes, the food that make the West Indian Day Parade so much fun. And while it is so important to really take part in enjoyable activities, we also have to take some time to recognize the main reason we observe Labor Day. The day is meant to pay tribute to the economic and social contributions of workers. And with the unemployment rate hovering above 8% and so many people out of work, it's even more important to recognize how important it is to focus on the labor picture. I sat down with Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio to do just that. The significance of Labor Day was the topic of this week's Into the Deep. Bishop, thank you so much for joining us. You know
Good to be here.
We love having you here. Labor Day.
Yes, it's coming.
It's coming, and let's put it in its proper perspective. I mean, we love the barbecues, we love the beaches, we love the family, but it's not really what it's all about. Can you give us a sense of why we celebrate Labor Day?
Well, it is a day when we recognize that man's labor is something that has been given to us by God, not as a curse, but as a blessing. And obviously, in the beginning, it was a celebration of unions because labor was under a lot of stress, and unions helped put labor into its proper perspective, that it restored the dignity of labor. I think today, in general, the conditions are not as bad as they were in the past. There's always, you always find problems. But I think the more important thing today is to understand that labor is something that is God-given. It is something that gives meaning to our lives, spiritually also, as well as it takes care of the needs of our life. So it is a day to stop and think, we work for a purpose, we work under God's plan.
And I think it's important to also understand, as Bishop Blair mentioned, and I'm going to quote here in his annual statement, that work is more than a paycheck, as you just mentioned. It helps raise his families, it develops our potential, share in God's creation, and contributes to the common good. Now, when you look at all of this and consider everything that's at stake, it's just more than about just having a job. It really paints a broader picture.
Of course, it is. A job is something that is finite, but a vocation to work and to fulfill God's plan in your life is something much greater. And we do that in a lot of different ways. And Labor Day is a time when we sit back and, it is a relaxation day, a day with the family. We say, we're back. Well, this is what I work for, to be able to be with family and friends and to celebrate. And it's kind of a celebratory day when we recognize the fruits of our labor. So I think it's a very good day to sit back and spiritually take an account.
And we're in a very changing environment now, and I hope you agree. Is this the worst you've seen the labor situation in about a decade?
Well, I have a little bit more memory. I go back in the 70s, and it was very bad then. Probably a little worse than it is right now. But unfortunately, today, we're not dealing with the problem up front. In the 70s, there was government programs of putting people back to work. There was a whole attitude in the country that we need people to go to work. We don't want people on unemployment for 3, 4 years. We want people to work. There was a different attitude, and I think this is what's missing today. We don't have this incentive to work. We're relying too much upon government subsidy and not trying to get the private sector, where most of the jobs are, to get going. They've subsidized some public sector jobs, but those jobs are usually always there anyhow. So I think we missed the boat along the way. Somehow we have not looked at the responsibility, especially of the private sector, to create work, to get the economy going again. We've been through worse times. This time, I think we're going to head for worse times unless we wake up and recognize that we need to give people incentives to work.
And what resources do we as the Catholic Church have available to us to educate, to call people in, maybe job training?
Well, through our Catholic Charities, there's some of that happening. But again, most of this depends also upon some of the federal government insight into giving money to nonprofits to help them to spur the economy on. This is what happened in the 70s. There was a program called CEDA. And this program gave money to nonprofits to put people to work, to train them. It was a partnership between the nonprofit and also some for-profit industries of making people available for work. And that's what I think we're missing today.
And let's not forget the spiritual healing that always helps. Will you be celebrating any special Labor Day masses?
This Labor Day, like every year, we have the West Indian Day Parade, and that's a great celebration. Takes place on Monday morning at St. Matthew's Church. So that's always a good time when we recognize the contribution of the West Indian population to our diocese and to our city. And it is a celebration of their contribution and work.
Thank you, Bishop DeMarcio, for always putting it in perspective for us. Happy Labor Day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Stay tuned. There's more Currents ahead.
When we return, Seeds of Giving in this unique opportunity in Queens.
A project called Plant, Grow, and Give. It gives the opportunity for the guys and the girls who we serve to give back to the community. And we've done it in an innovative and creative way.
And we unfortunately have some sad news to report tonight. Italian Cardinal Carlo Maria Martini has died. Martini served as Archbishop of Milan for 22 years before retiring in 2002. During his time in Milan, he was frequently mentioned as a possible candidate for the papacy. We will have more on Cardinal Martini next week on Currents. Finally tonight, it's back home, to Mercy Home, that is, in Rosedale, Queens. The residence, which also has locations in Brooklyn and Nassau County, helps people with developmental disabilities lead full and interesting lives. One of the ways they do that is through a program known as Plant, Grow, Give. Mercy Home residents plant vegetables, collect the harvest, and donate them to those in need. We sent our cameras to Mercy Home's Rosedale residents to learn a lot more.
Here, Marcus, I got some more for you. You're doing good, Marcus. You're doing real good. See if there's more eggplants we can pick. I see a good one.
What we're really doing is a project called Plant, Grow, and Give, and it's an outgrowth of years of hard work on the part of the staff, and primarily gives the opportunity for the guys and the girls who we serve to give back to the community.
What's this?
And we've done it in an innovative and creative way.
No, show me what it is. Tell me. E-G-G-P-L-A-N-T. That's right, it's an eggplant. Let's put it in the basket right here. Put it in gently.
We're at Mercy Home Kevin Keating residence, and it's the hub for our Day Have program. Today, our Day Have program picked the vegetables from their garden and delivered them to Carlos Legacy in Hempstead. Carlos Legacy is an agency who helps people who need a little bit of help just coming back into society a little bit. And we were very, very, very well received. They were thrilled to have our vegetables, and they really, really like our guys a lot. And that's just, it was very heartwarming.
Give me a hug. I gotta give you a hug like we always do. How you doing, Marcus? Danny Jones, who is one of the people who comes to us from Island Harvest and graces us with his presence and his little gifts that he grows in the garden. He really lightens up our day, Dan. We work very hard. We need some kind of boost like we get from Daniel when he shows up.
That's your eggplant. We made eggplant parmesan.
My relationship with Danny and Maurice is they are my produce guys. And anybody who knows the trends of cooking and restaurateuring now, it's farm to table. And I basically get stuff from Danny and Maurice that comes out of the ground 2 hours before I use it.
Because of Danny and his growing vegetables and him devoting his time, he helps us feed about 85 people a day. Right?
Right.
He's a wonderful guy. And so is Marcus. And we're very grateful that we met them. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Plant, Grow, and Give is not just something that happened overnight. It's a project and a program that was developed in concert with staff at all levels and with the people that we serve. What we want to do is think out of the box so that the individuals, whether it's Marcus or Danny or Ricky or Teresa over at Santulli Residence, we want them to feel successful in the community. We want them to feel the same kind of pride that we feel when we do something good for someone else. And Plant, Grow, and Give really is a way of doing that.
Everybody's proud of you, Dan. We love to see you. You're terrific. We look forward to seeing Danny Jones. And when Danny Jones doesn't come, we're like, you know, where's Danny Jones?
And that is all for tonight. Be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net, and you can also follow us on Twitter and connect with us on Facebook. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faubles. We leave you tonight with more from Mercy Home's Plant, Grow, Give program. Thank you for watching and have a good night.